There are two things in life that I thoroughly enjoy being inside: a new case, and obviously, a new shirt. T-Blocks is a subscription service that aims to send you shirts that are tailored to your interests. When you sign up, you can pick from up to 10 different categories, including, but not limited to, games, DC, Marvel, anime, and more. For $8.99 per month or $6.99 when you overcloth with a 12-month prepay, you can expect a new shirt delivered to your door each month with a different design within one of your selected categories. They offer two options at the moment: a standard T-Blocks where they send you officially licensed shirts from the aforementioned categories, or the community blocks where they send you shirts with designs from contributing artists. There are also plans to release a premium block soon, which comes with a licensed shirt and a couple of relevant goodies. There are so many designs, I'd go so far as to say it's practically infinity fabric. They sent me a sample, and I gotta say, wow. It looks and feels pretty darn good, and the only reason I'm not wearing it right now is because I'm cold. If you want to check them out, you'll find a link to their site in the description, and if you want to save 10% on your entire order, you can use the code ALittleDIMMTBX at checkout. First, we had the Alpha. And finally, we have the Omega. The SPEC Omega. Which looks like the Alpha. But it sports the innards of Corsair's 460X and comes in three color options of black, white and black, and red and black. So if you like the looks of the Alpha but the internal workings of the 460X, this would be built just to spec for you. The tower comes in at about 495 by 232 by 516 millimeters, or about 19.49 by 9.13 by 20.32 inches. On the side of the angles, you've got the strong look of the SPEC Alpha case, sporting all sorts of lines and edges. But just because something looks aggressive doesn't necessarily mean it can't also be classy. The front panel wears a tempered glass accent piece with a larger obligatory glass side panel mounted with... Wait, what? Accompanying the front panel, you get a built-in SATA-powered LED strip that glows in either white for the white model or red for the red and black models. Front I/O consists of power, two USB 3.0 ports, headphone and microphone jacks, a hard drive activity LED, and a reset button. Down to the bottom, we get these peculiar Omega weird-looking feet that elevate the case so your power supply's got some breathing room. Internally, we have mini, micro, and ATX motherboard support, 7 expansion slots, room for graphics cards up to 370mm long, room for CPU coolers up to 165mm tall, one spring-loaded SSD mounting unit that fits up to 3 drives behind the motherboard tray, and two 3.5-inch drive sleds next to the power supply area. What's more, the only tool that'll be touching those is me. And lastly, we've got spectacular cooling support. The front fits up to two 140s or three 120s, or radiators up to 280 or 360mm long. The top accommodates two 120s or two 140s with up to 240 or 280 radiator support, but more on that in a hot minute. Finally, we see support for one 120mm fan in the rear. Corsair includes a 120mm LED fan for intake and one for exhaust, so let's see if this case will suffer the same fate as so many others in the past year. My test system will consist of the i7-7700K processor clocked to 4.8 GHz at 1.3 volts, cooled by the Be Quiet Dark Rock Pro 3 cooler and the GTX 980 Ti Amp Extreme graphics card. CPU and GPU fans will be locked to 1000 and 1500 RPM respectively, with the case fans at full speed. With the front panel off, we see temperatures at 70.6 for CPU and 66.1 degrees Celsius for GPU. Slapping the panel back on, we see temperatures rise to 79.95 and 71.2 instead. While the inclusion of glass here clearly adds an interesting look to an already unique looking case, this makes the insides burn up like me 5 minutes into date night. But does it get as loud as I do? The build process itself went well. There were enough tie-down points to turn even the kinkiest of people on, and rubber grommets in areas I consider most critical. Cable management was a bit tight, but that's largely due to my use of extensions and too many hubs for too many things. The drive cage is removable and can be shifted over a little, and I always appreciate cutouts that allow for easier access to the expansion slots, even though I lack the length to properly utilize them. Despite that, I gotta mention the stuff that Omega bites. That's gotta be like at least a triple pun or something. I am not a huge fan of the glossy elements like the front I/O and the feet, but there are bigger problems afoot. The original Alpha had a front grate, which has been replaced by a tempered glass panel. While it looks nice, it is not permeable and therefore does not allow for airflow. Your only point of entry is the smaller grate towards the bottom. Speaking of that grate, it's the closest thing you'll get to a dust filter for the front, as well as a similar grate on top. You do get a cute one for the power supply though. Speaking of the power supply, let's ignore it completely and talk about its neighbor. The drive cage is held in place with thumb screws and can be repositioned over to the right by undoing said screws. Being thumb screws, they should be fairly easy to remove if you've left them loose enough, but this is not the case here. They seem to be in a constant state of rebellion, and I find them difficult to remove at pretty much any point in time. Kind of like my pants on date night. Really quickly back to the front panel, it makes me want to do a line of angle dust. That's a joke, because the panel has those aggressive lines, and drugs are my escape from panels that are difficult to remove. I don't know what that is. The top panel is held in place with 2 thumb screws, and after removing that, you can yank the front one off, but I recommend against it, because I broke one of the clips. Instead, I suggest going in and undoing each individual clip, which can be pretty tedious. The lack of a power supply shroud is a little confusing, because for $100 US, that's something I kind of expect with the package. However, when the case was first brought to my attention, I was told it was a 460X's insides with the SPEC Alpha's outsides, so one may speculate that a power supply shroud can be either harvested or purchased separately, since the 460X does have a pretty nice one. The main glass mounting has me a bit conflicted. Corsair includes an Allen wrench to undo the side panel, but it's definitely more cumbersome than a typical thumb screw. Additionally, I suggest being careful as the panel has nothing to rest on except the case's feet. While I do think that it looks cleaner and it kinda helps in preventing fingerprints or smudges on the glass, I personally don't think it's worth the trade-off for ease of access. Since you're lacking in dust filters, you may want to open the case more often than usual to clean it out, but if it's not that big of a deal to you, you might prefer this appearance. My only other minor gripe is these rubber bits fall off pretty easily, though in some cases, a loose rubber is a lot more catastrophic. These last few things aren't necessarily bad, but still important to mention. The top can fit a 280mm radiator, but Corsair warns that it may likely interfere with motherboard components, so your best bet would be a 240 up there, assuming your RAM isn't freakishly tall. The drive cage doesn't allow for push-pull configurations unless it's removed completely, and moving it to its second position won't allow for a fan and radiator down in that region at all. The SSD mounts are all connected to each other, so when you remove it, it comes out as one unit. It orients the SSD's connectors upwards, which I initially thought was weird for cable routing, but since there's no basement, it gives your excess cable somewhere to go. The case is overall solid, and aside from that clip I broke, it leaves me a little to fuss about in terms of build quality. The plastic used for the panels is harder than I am 5 minutes into date night, and the glass, while contributing to a bit of hotboxing, does look pretty darn sharp. The overall aesthetic is great if you're into that kind of look, and I can't resist tempered glass and some nice lighting. What can I say? I'm a glass man. And so that's all I have to say about that. Like, dislike, comment, subscribe, share, leave me questions if you got them. Thanks for watching. My name is Steven, and I am ALittleDIMM. Bye-bye. For $8.99 per month or $6.99 when you overcloth with a 12 for $8.99 per month or $6.99 when you overcloth with a 12 God damn it. There are also plans to release a premium blocks. Yeah. Wow. That one sounds stupid. And if you want to save 10% on your entire order, you can use the code ALittleDIMM. ALittleDIMM. My next deleting video. The tower comes in at 495 by 232 by 150. I always mess that up. The tower comes in at 900. Down to the bottom, we get these peculiar. But does it get as loud as I do? While it looks nice, it is not permeable. Permeable. Being thumb screws, they should be fairly easy to remove if you've left them loose before. Darn it. They should be fairly easy to remove if you've left them loose enough. Oh. They seem to be in a constant state of rebellion, and I find them really difficult to remove in pretty much any point. Oh man, I messed up. I was told it was a 460X's insides with the SPEC Alpha's outsides. So, one may speculate that I'm pretty sure I used that one before, and it's just as stupid. When the case was first brought to my attention, I was told it was a, and moving it to its second position won't allow for fan and radiators, I hate that word radiator. But since there's no basement,